violin. Kick your cares down the stairs and come to Holiday Inn. If you can't find someone who will set your heart a whirl, take your car and motor to the home of boy meets girl. If you're laid up with a breakdown, throw away your vitamin. Don't get worse, grab your nurse and come to Holiday Inn. Happy holidays, happy holidays. While the merry bells keep ringing, may your every wish come true. Happy holidays, happy holidays, may the calendar keep ringing. Happy holidays.
I'm standing on the stage at TheatreWorks in Hartford, where Christmas on the Rocks is currently running through the end of December. We're going to be spending the day here talking with the actors and one of the playwrights and one of the directors here at TheatreWorks in Hartford on 89.5 FM WSKB for both the Westfield News Show and Artsbeat Radio. Our special thanks to the people at TheatreWorks. Peter Coles is our engineer at 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach, and my co-host today will be Patrick Berry.
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. It is Thursday, December 6, 2018. If you're watching on Channel 15, you may be wondering why there's a bar here, but we'll get to that in a matter of moments. But I have a special guest host with me this morning, Mark G. Auerbach, our Artsbeat reporter. You probably see his articles every Thursday in the paper and online every Wednesday afternoon. So good morning, Mark. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Patrick. And this program will also be aired on Artsbeat Radio in two segments on Fridays, December 7th and 14th.
A riveting 2 weeks of Westfield News Radio and Artsbeat Radio, right?
Exactly.
Are you as excited about the show as I am?
I am, because we were here opening night, and I am still in pain from laughing. I have not laughed as much during 90 minutes, and this wasn't my first time at Christmas on the Rocks. I've seen the last four productions.
And this was my first. It was Christmas on the Rocks Friday night. Last Friday night, November 30th, was my first time seeing Christmas on the Rocks. So I have no bar by which to measure previous performances. But similarly, Mark, my stomach hurt from laughing for 90 minutes. It was hilarious. It was somewhat of what I had expected because of you telling me, here's what the show's about, kind of. But you didn't get into detail, which was nice. So kind of left me hanging a little bit.
Even in the reviews, I won't give anything away, but I will tell people that if you have back problems and laughing hurts, you should wear a back brace, because this is good. One of the funniest shows I've ever seen. It remains funny. And the thing I learned this year, in seeing it several times, it's funny, but the very last piece, and we should probably backtrack, Christmas on the Rocks is 7 short playlets about our childhood movie kids that we liked, from
the characters we grew up with.
Clara and the Nutcracker,
Hermie the dentist,
Charlie Brown,
Tiny Tim.
All of these, they're grown up now, and it's Christmas Eve in a small town somewhere, and they show up as dysfunctional adults in a quiet bar, which we are sitting at right now.
Perfect backdrop for my life.
Their lives have just gone totally wrong. And in the court, this bartender is sort of like their shrink confessor and everything, and they just lay it out on the table what's going wrong. And it's very, very funny. However, the very last segment, and I won't tell you which character it was, the very last segment had a very sentimental bit to it, which gave the show heart. And the comedy is high up here for a lot of the time, and some of it's very low comedy as well.
I wouldn't say that.
It ends with heart. And to me, that is something I noticed this year that I hadn't noticed before, and just really wrapped it up in a really nice holiday feel.
But I would say each of the playlets is the word to use to describe the scenes. They all have heart, though. If you think about it, though, they're funny, but each one has a meaning behind it. So it's pretty good. Anyway, without further ado, would you care to introduce our guest today?
Our first guest today is Eric Ort, who's the Associate Artistic Director of TheatreWorks in Hartford. If you've been to TheatreWorks in the last couple of seasons, you may remember the production of a new play called The Wolves, which Eric directed. It was about a high school girls' soccer team. And oddly enough, after this play played TheatreWorks, it played in theaters all over the country. There was a production in our neck of the woods at Smith College. There was another one at Williams College. And it's one of the most talked about plays in recent times. Welcome.
Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Patrick, Mark, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You haven't been with TheatreWorks all that long in the current role you're in, though, right?
This is my third year on staff here at TheatreWorks.
Is it everything you thought it would be and then some?
It is everything I thought and then some. It's a really terrific place to be.
I love this theater. This place is fantastic.
Well, I think the work we do here is remarkable, and because it's only 3 years in, I feel like I can still say that.
You know, it is a unique place because, what is it, 200 seats?
191.
191. Okay, so it's a very small, intimate theater. And the times that I've come here, even the next time I'll come here, when I walk through the door and walk down to my seat, it's amazing how close you are to the action. You know, it's like having a front row at a basketball game or a baseball game or whatever. The action is right there. And the actors are right in front of you. It's as if you're part of the play. I did not get a chance to see Wolves, but Mark explained it to me. And with that characterization of you being that close, Wolves was... I want you to tell us a little bit about Wolves, but being that close from the audience, that had to have been, from a director's point, you kind of want to bring that audience even a little bit closer.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really fascinating about The Wolves, which is built right into the script, is that the audience is a fly on the wall in this group of girls' very private space.
Right.
Really, truly, one of the fundamental disruptions of what we're accustomed to seeing from teenage girls is that they are all on their own. They are not acting in relationship to boys, to their parents, to their teachers. So it's this really remarkable opportunity to see young women talking about what they talk about.
Being the father of two one's now 21, one's now 19. Kind of glad I didn't see it.
You know what?
Because I don't want to know the inner workings of what goes on in a teenage girl's mind. You know,
Yes.
I know it. I know too much.
a not uncommon reaction. Or the flip side, which is they aren't really like that.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right. But so how did you get involved with Wolves?
When I was in graduate school, I was doing an internship at the Vineyard Theater in New York, which is just off Union Square, in their literary office. And very happily, one of my first responsibilities there was to read the script of The Wolves for the literary office to see if it was something that the Vineyard might consider doing at some point. And I was completely taken by this ultimately incredibly empowering story about taking young women seriously.
Right. And I don't think just because of the nature of young women, teenage girls, cell phones, everything, I don't think the general populace takes teenage girls seriously anymore. But they struggle among themselves, as you depict, issues that overwhelm society in general. And it can be heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and that's true. Again, one of the beauties of this script is that it's the young women are wrestling with what's going on in the world in the terms that they understand it.
Right.
And the play honors that too,
Which is good.
It's really quite amazing in that respect. And by virtue of that fact, The Wolves this year will be one of the top 20 produced plays in this country.
Really?
It is clear there is a hunger for telling this particular story at this time.
So I'm not a theater guy. That's what you guys do for a living. How does Wolves end up here in Hartford at TheatreWorks, and how does Eric Ort get involved with it? where does the script come from? Where does the decision to put that show on this stage? Where does it happen?
Well, it principally our producing artistic director, Rob Ruggiero, shapes the season, but he does that with the input of really Tanisha Dugan, who's the producing associate, and myself. But all of the staff here have ideas. Everyone is a theater enthusiast, so we're all keeping our finger on the pulse to one degree or another. And our subscribers. We are frequently getting suggestions. Hey, I just saw this, and I just saw that, and you might consider this. Or as I sat in the audience, I thought TheaterWorks should do this show.
Right. So now, where was Wolves before it came here?
Well, it was developed by the Playwrights Realm, which is a New York-based playwrights theater, and that production was then workshopped at Vassar College at their Powerhouse Theater. And that same production then went to New York and was performed at the Duke Theater to rave reviews. It was extended there. It had to close because the Duke was already leased to someone else. When that lease was up, the Wolves came back again and ran as long as it could. That production closed, and then that production was picked up again a year later for Lincoln Center Theater.
Wow.
And in the interim, thank goodness, TheaterWorks nabbed the rights to it. So, in fact, our production last autumn was just before the Lincoln Center remount of that original production.
So why schlep to the city when you can come to Hartford and see incredible theater?
Right.
Most of the shows that TheaterWorks does have originated in other small theaters and maybe have had a New York run or something. But Christmas on the Rocks, the current thing, is something that you guys developed.
Exactly.
How did that come to be?
So, yes, you're absolutely right, Mark, that Christmas on the Rocks was conceived by Rob. And I don't know precisely, but I can only imagine that it was some fever dream after watching too many Christmas specials one year.
One too many eggnogs after a few Christmas specials. And you go, wait a minute, what would happen to these people in 30 years?
Yep, yes. Or started with a dirty joke. Tiny Tim walks into a bar on Christmas Eve.
That should be the lead line. Tiny Tim walks into a bar on New Year's Eve, and hilarity ensues.
So that's really how it started. Is Rob's idea? I'm sure he immediately started with a list of 10 of those children from Christmas movies, Christmas stories.
Well, I will say on the drive home, my wife and I, we were running through the old Christmas things, going, "Oh, what characters could they do next? What about this one? What about that one?" And it was just the whole ride home. It was fantastic.
I'd like to compare your list to ours too.
Now, the playwrights that wrote these, and we're going to get a chance later on today to talk with Jacques Lamar, who wrote 2 of the 7 plays. But did Rob know these people, or did he reach out to them all at once and say, here's a movie, or did they choose the movies? How did that happen?
So they, by and large, they are playwrights whose work we have produced in one way, shape, or form. So, for instance, the first play is a John Cariani short play based on Ralphie from A Christmas Story, and of course John's play Almost Maine and then Lovesick were both here at TheaterWorks. So John is a really valued voice for our theater, and he also has heart to his writing that seemed really well suited for that particular film as well.
I've got to interject. He's also a well-known actor who was in Something Rotten and Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway, and his career started in Springfield at Stage West, where he was an intern, and he performed in a play called The Little Prince, which was directed by Eric Hill. And somebody
Were you at Stage West when he was there?
No, this was after I was at Stage West, but somebody noticed his...
Oh, so he's just a young kid.
Yeah, he's not of the same vintage of Helen Hayes and some of those other my contemporaries. But he was discovered at Stage West, and his career moved right to New York. And
I keep saying, Mark, we're going to get discovered right here. This is the next
might,
Regis
Patrick.
and Kathy Lee right here.
We might.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
also
frightening.
say, as a pitch for John, he was also just in the really brilliant production of The Band's Visit. That swept the Tonys last season.
So, Eric, let me ask you, so your title here is assistant director. So what's next? Do I have that right?
Artistic associate.
Artistic
strictly speaking, yeah.
Well, Mark's got it wrong on my That's it.
First
Two
time in
demerits.
history,
No, I don't know
right?
about that.
I'll have to stay after work with my hands folded.
Get behind the stage. Get behind the bar, rather. So what's next for you?
Well, so at the moment, much of my time is focused on a renovation project that we're doing here at Theater Works, which is really very exciting for us. The building that we are in, TheaterWorks owns, which is a great gift for a nonprofit theater to actually own the space in which we perform and work. And the building was built in 1927. It's a beautiful Moorish Revival, former gas company building. And after 90 years or so, we all need a little zhuzh, and so
a little facelift.
Yep. So we are doing this rather extensive renovation project, which is principally focused on health and safety in the building. So we need HVAC upgrades, electrical upgrades to the building. Working on the fire suppression. We have a gorgeous elevator that is at best unreliable. But while we're doing all of that, we have this golden opportunity to focus some attention on the theater itself.
So how does that affect the performance schedules?
Well, that's an excellent question.
Why, thank
Patrick.
you.
So we are here in the space for the conclusion of Christmas on the Rocks and for our next season show, which is Doll's House Part 2. When that show goes down in late February, or if we extend early March, we will then move out of the space for 6 months while the renovations that actually take place in the theater are underway, and we will be decamping and moving over to the theater at the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art here in downtown Hartford.
And about how far is that from where we're sitting right now?
I would say it's about a 4-block walk.
Oh, not far at all.
So we're at 233 Pearl Street, and they're at 600 Main Street.
And didn't TheaterWorks begin its performances at the Wadsworth?
Exactly. So it's something of a homecoming, though this is no question our home. But it's an opportunity to remain in downtown, which was really important to all of us here because we know what an important economic driver we are to the area, and to rob our restaurant friends of that business is something that we did not want to do.
It's interesting you say that, and there was an article in The Atlantic yesterday about, and it really focused on New York City, but the storyline could be taken to any town and community, city and town across the country, and it's the change of the downtown. Retail environments are going away, Amazon, whatever. What draws people to a downtown? What will people spend their money on locally? And it all comes down to arts and entertainment is really the driver. So to your point where you don't want to leave the neighborhood, that's important to Hartford as a city because, if you guys just picked up and said, all right, we're going to go to Manchester for 6 months, that doesn't help Hartford. So you're being a great community partner by staying locally and continuing the patronage to the restaurants and the coffee shops and the bars afterwards and so forth. So congratulations and kudos to you guys for keeping that in mind.
Thank you.
How big of a seating capacity does the Wadsworth have versus here?
So again, we're 191 here, and the Wadsworth Atheneum is about 280. And we're probably going to tighten that number up because of a few technical additions we need to do to the space to produce our kind of theater there. Right. But it's about half again as large.
That's not bad. But will it be a similar intimate setting?
It is a different configuration. Okay. So here at TheaterWorks, we are what Rob describes as a modified thrust. The seating wraps the stage.
A modified thrust.
Yeah.
Rob's been dipping into the thesaurus quite a bit, hasn't he?
Now and again, he takes a little walk that way.
Wasn't there a show here, and I believe it was Constellations, where the stage was moved out into the house area and there was seating in the back?
Correct.
Really?
Yeah. So we reconfigured for that show and made it a 360 fully arena seating for that.
Now, do you guys do other things besides theater here? Do you have music? Do you do kids things? What else happens on this stage aside from hilarity?
Well, principally it is hilarity and the production of 6 shows throughout the course of the year. But music has always been a part of our DNA here, and that can vary from drawing in a single performer for a single occasion You may recall that last spring, during the run of The Legend of Georgia McBride, that Varla Jean Merman, the drag performer, was here doing a one-night-only gig. And so sometimes it's outside performers that we bring in because they're either thematically related to a show or we just love to see them.
Right. Georgia McBride was phenomenal, by the way.
Thank
Another
you.
great show.
Thank you. It was an amazing experience.
And I apologize. I forgot the actor who played Georgia McBride. Phenomenal. I mean, and I am in awe about the talent of actors, period. But for him to be able to do what he did, from the drag to the straight, it was the emotions that he brought to the stage. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was a young guy too. It's a lot of these things, a lot of these actors that I see, you'd think they go through years and years of training and schooling to learn to hone their skill, but I don't even think he was 30. I mean, he was, or maybe I'm dating myself, but he looked very young.
He does. Yes, he looks young. He plays young. He is young.
He for the three of us, young kid, but. He was just unbelievably talented. Not to diminish anybody else, but the Georgia McBride show was amazing.
Yeah, it was. We were blessed with a really gifted cast. Everyone in that, and to your question about what else do we do here,
Right.
Sometimes when we're looking to do something special, we're literally tapping into what are the special gifts of the people in this given cast.
Yeah.
And so Nick Alexander, who played Rexy in The Legend of Georgia McBride, is a composer and pop singer, and so we had a concert of his band.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
And it's surprised us so deeply how appealing that was to our base audience.
I'm sure.
We thought,
Yeah.
this will
Well,
bring
he's
in the
talented.
kids.
He was
Oh,
talented.
he's
Yeah,
remarkably
exactly.
talented. Yeah.
We're getting ready to end the segment, but what are you directing next? What do you? Is there anything on the plate that you can share with us? Or is it you can't? Is it I can tell you, but I have to kill you?
There's I will not kill you. There's nothing on the plate at the moment,
Okay.
but we're in the midst of our season planning for next year,
Okay.
and so we'll see. We'll see. There are certainly some shows that I am keen to pitch and to advocate for. I'm not sure I'm the right director for any of them, but they are important stories for us to be thinking about telling here.
And if people want information about TheaterWorks, we should probably tell them how they can get it.
Absolutely. So I'll put in a special pitch because much of my time is being spent on the renovation. twreno.org is a group of information about what we're doing in the space, if anyone wants more information on that. And of course, twhartford.org is our website.
Very good. Eric Ort, thank you very much for joining Mark and I. Really do appreciate it. Best of luck to you with the renovations and next season. Looking forward to what you can put on the stage next season.
As are we.
Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a little break. Thanks some of our underwriters. We'll be right back.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. You listen to the Westfield News Radio Show. It's about, 26 minutes past the hour. It's Thursday, December 6, 2018. Mark G. Auerbach is joining me as my co-host this morning. And Mark, this show is actually going to be split up for two of your weekly shows, right?
It's going to be split. It'll be on my Arts Beat Radio on Friday the 7th, and again the second half on Friday the 14th.
So if you have so much fun listening to this show on the Westfield News Radio Show, you can listen to it tomorrow and next Friday on Mark's show, right?
Yeah, and then afterwards we'll post it to YouTube, so if you missed a segment of it and want to stream it, it's there for you.
Perfect. So who do we have now, Mark?
Well, we have Tom Bloom and Jen Harris and Randy Harrison, and they've seated themselves in alphabetical order here. They are the cast
I
of
guess
multiple
you're right.
characters in TheaterWorks' current production.
Tom plays the same role.
Well, yeah, he does. But Jen and Randy play multiple characters in Christmas on the Rocks, which is the current offering here at TheaterWorks in Hartford, running through the end of through December 23rd.
A wonderful holiday show.
Perfect holiday
For the
show.
whole family?
Maybe not, but
Maybe 16 and over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tom joined the cast last year. I don't know when you started doing
This is my 5th year.
Okay, and this is the 6th year of the show, and you're new to the cast.
Yes, it's my first year.
Oh, the rookie hazing, huh? Nice.
I saw it.
We don't
Jen's
haze here.
first
We
year,
don't.
though.
We actually are against
Initiation.
hazing. That's a good
there
word.
you go.
And the show itself is a hazing process.
Yeah, I
every
guess
year,
so. I
imagine.
guess the rehearsal process is learning all those
Memorizing
plays.
her.
Absolutely.
Is it difficult for you guys to do high-level comedy like that? It seems like very intense, and at least the night that we attended, the audience was totally into it and following you
lot
every
of
step of the
loud
way.
guffaws,
Does that
yeah.
change show by show?
To some extent. I mean, all the audiences so far, I mean, I've only been performing it for a week, have been really responsive. But, it's a scale depending on the time of day. I mean, if it's a matinee, sometimes it's different the day of the week. But generally, they've been pretty involved and excited the whole
I found that
run.
to be true all years. The audiences here, whether it's the play or if it's Hartford, they're very responsive, and they really do enjoy the show.
And a lot of people come back, so
Yeah.
you can kind of tell, maybe not exactly, but that they're salting in the audience about people that really know it and they see what's coming up. That's always fun.
This is the 4th time that I've seen it. I've covered it for the last this season 4, and I've noticed the nuances and the changes, not only in the cast changes and how that brings something to it, but generally there's a new playlet every year, although this year there's not. But I noticed things about the show this year that I never saw before. So I think it's a play or an evening of theater you can come back to again and again.
Yeah.
So, Jen, let me ask you a question. You said this is your 4th year doing this Christmas on the Rocks.
Fifth year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why keep coming back? As an actor, does it get too repetitive? Don't you want a challenge?
It's a great question, and I
Why,
think
thank you.
I think I always answer that with I actually really genuinely do like coming here. I think it's one of the most efficient and well-staffed regional theaters I've ever been to in the country.
Good.
And I'm treated really, really well, which is something that sometimes doesn't quite often happen when you leave home and go somewhere and people understand that. The staff understands that. Rob lets me sort of do little things, and we do little things different each year. And also with high comedy, it's just so, and physical comedy, it's so different every time that it's repetitive, yes, but it does feel like a comedic workout.
Well, from the audience perspective, it certainly looks like it.
Yeah, right. And what else is happening in December in New York?
Yeah,
Nothing.
good point. Right.
It's
Yeah,
true.
it's quiet.
It's a great time. It's a
Right.
great time to go and do something comfortable and familiar with a staff that I really enjoy.
Good. Tom, now this is your first year.
Second year.
Second year.
I was here last year.
Very good. So how does your coming here last year for your first visit compare to your second year at it?
It's a little bit easier because, as you said, the plays are the same, so I had to refresh myself on that. And yet we're starting with another cast member, so you're learning a whole new body and
timing,
treatment, and he's very different, and so that's different. It's odd how it took me a while to get back into the swing of just getting the words down, But after a while, it makes it fun to see how much you can bring to it, and actually it's liberated me. I feel much more.
Do you change your approach to it year to year?
Not a major approach, but you refine it.
Okay.
And Rob's been right on that. There's things that he just wants to make better, and you can be more specific, and sometimes it's getting a laugh, but a lot of times it's just about more humanity. There's a lot of humanity in this show.
Mark and I were talking about that earlier. You're exactly right.
And we noticed, I noticed it this year more than other times that I've seen it, but the Charlie Brown sequence that ends the play, I don't want to give anything away, but it had a lot of heart to it that was, there, that maybe I missed it in previous years because I was like trying to get over the pain of laughing so hard. But I found it ended the play on a really upbeat, holiday spirited note, which made me feel good about laughing as hard as I did.
I will say I laughed throughout, but the one thing that really sent me over the edge was when you started walking like Charlie Brown.
Yes! Okay, that
That-
was Randy's. That
Oh
Randy,
my
Randy
God.
came up with that this year. That was Randy's idea. It's Randy Harrison's idea. Randy Harrison came up with that, and we
secretly,
died.
I didn't think it would work.
Really?
I didn't know if it
so
would work
good.
either.
It was, and then you did it later. It
I'm
was
not
like,
even as good as I.
Oh my
every night
God.
I'm like, I gotta get better at that.
It really surprised
Well, now
me.
we just gave something away. Not necessarily.
no,
Not
exactly.
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I'm so
I want-
glad people recognize
Oh
that.
my!
because-
That was the. It was just like everything happened, and then all of a sudden you made that move from the door in. I was like,
I'm so
The
glad.
recognition is the key to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a believer.
So
Yes, Randy.
way to go,
Very
Randy. Way to go. So let me ask you, Randy. So
Yeah.
we talked about their experience with the show. This is your first time here. What is your take on the show? Why come to Hartford to do Christmas on the Rocks?
I mean, I saw the show Jen's first year. I'm old friends with Jen.
now
and
you're
we've-
hooked.
Yeah, and we've worked together before. So, and I knew Rob. I'd almost worked with him a few times. So it was sort of like this perfect timing to work in a place that I've wanted to work with people I knew I liked, and a show that I knew was hilarious. And it's very different than I would just wanted to do comedy again. I wanted to be on stage with Jen again. It was just like a perfect timing situation.
It was an absolutely wonderful show.
Your career started with I don't know how you say, best-selling, high-rated television series, and you have gone to theater, done regional theater, you've done Broadway tours, Broadway. What do you like about performing in a small regional theater?
This theater specifically, I love the size of the house. I love how close they are, how close they feel. I love doing a comedy in this space. You can hear you're so close to the audience, you can really gauge how your performance is being read. When you can pull back, when you can speed up, when you can really just get a joke perfectly. I like smaller theaters. It's just a different kind of energy. A lot of times when I was touring these huge proscenium houses, I was like 40 feet away from the first row of the audience. You have no sense of where they... some are different. Some are massive theaters, but they feel really close. Every theater's different. And I think as an actor, it's always thrilling to go from one kind of space to a completely different kind of space and figure out what's to learn. And
Let me ask you, though, here we are, we're on stage. I have a hard time seeing Pete.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's because of the lighting.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
you guys run into the same experience every night. You have those lights right in your face. So how do you tell whether you're in a 200-seat theater or a 2,000?
You don't see them, you feel
Okay.
them. You can feel how close they are. You can feel the laughter, the shifting. You can hear it. It's sort of
Yeah, I guess you're right.
peripheral.
When,
you
when
get
the guy
used to
right
it.
there laughs, you hear
Yeah,
it
you
laugh.
hear it, and you're like, "Oh, that guy's right there."
Or
you
when
do
they don't
something-
laugh.
Yeah.
Good point.
I'm as a bartender, I sit there and I watch. I can see the audience all the time, at least the front row.
Right.
And
Yeah, Tom
you
knows
pick
when
up
they're
everything.
misbehaving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe serve drinks to the crowd, Tom.
yeah. Sure.
You can do a little gesture and it gets a laugh, and you weren't even aware that people saw it. So you're like, "Oh, even this tiny thing reads in this house." So I can do even smaller comedy, or a lot of times things like that nobody sees it.
People miss it in a bigger house. You're right. You're right.
Jen, you co-wrote one of the playlets.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Well, which one?
My name is Karen.
Okay.
Which is the Frosty the Snowman story. But I tell the story of Karen, the little girl who actually made Frosty and made him come to life, and then made him come to life again. It was Matt and I's second year, and it was time for a new story. And Rob asked us coming back if we wanted to co-write, because Matt and I have co-written some things before together as well. And he asked us if we wanted to write a new story. And he had a couple ideas of, it could be this story, of Christmas stories, and we settled on Karen and me playing Karen, and then we wrote it from there.
We were laughing about it in the first segment with Eric about, okay, how do you come up with the ideas? And I'm thinking, all right, Rob's probably had too much eggnog after a marathon, holiday movie marathon, and then just starts coming up with these things. But they're hilarious.
They're fun. Karen came from a very, I wanted to play a female character that was strong and crazy and not over-sexualized and still funny and zany, but was trying to get, her voice and her power out there by not getting any credit for making Frosty. I just sort of made up that idea, and I also really like multimedia work. So and that came up, and we weren't going to do it. And then Rob, because there's a multimedia element in the show, and it was just going to be sort of the idea that we were on using, that she was filming herself for social media. And then Rob said, and I hadn't even thought of it actually being
put up on the screens,
projected up on the screens. And Rob said, well, maybe we could get some projectors up on the screens. And then it was like in our heads, and we're like, well, we have to make it work.
Right.
We have to, it has to happen. And he did. It was great.
Randy was talking about some of the subtle gestures you make that you don't really think about, but then the crowd reacts to it. You're doing your bit with the camera, the social media thing, and Tom's in the background, and he does one of these.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And again, it's one of those things you just you laugh out loud. It's just the
really
subtle
fun.
things that people pick up on. It was hilarious.
After you did wrote the piece and performed it, have you changed it at all?
Oh, yeah. You mean the Karen piece?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, even just this year, this is so minor, but it used to be she was doing a Facebook Live, and now we're making an Instagram Live because that just makes more sense now and is more the
More
reality
hip.
of what people...
Yeah.
Thank you, yes.
It's
more
what the
hip.
kids are into nowadays, right?
Yeah, and I've added another little, like she mentioned some other little things, just to sort of like update it.
So was this the first year for Karen, or did you...
This is the third year
Third
for
year.
Karen.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
This is Karen's third year.
Yeah, and if I remember, Karen replaced Cindy Lou Who.
Yeah, Karen
which
replaced Cindy Lou.
was, when I saw that, I've got to say I was on the floor.
It's funny.
People laugh hysterically during the entire show now, but that one just so took me by surprise.
And it's wonderful because that was written by Matthew Lombardo, and it's all in rhyming couplets like
Oh my
Dr.
God.
Seuss. It's actually it's the structure of that piece is wonderful. And he made it into a full-length play that ran in New York City last year during the holidays.
Wow. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. Our guests are Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris from Christmas on the Rocks. Thanks for joining us, lady and gentlemen. Mark Auerbach's my guest co-host today. So the Christmas on the Rocks idea, the playlets, I didn't realize... Mark didn't tell me, because I came down Friday night for my first time seeing it. So I didn't realize they're like Saturday Night Live skits. They're little individual things. I thought it was one big play, but Tom's really the only cohesive part among all the little playlets. And Tom, you play it well. It's fantastic. You missed your calling as a bartender, I will tell you that. But Randy can chug a beer like no guy I've ever seen before, so I give you that.
I wasn't even trying.
Wow, now there's a talent. Afterwards. So now, what happens next year? Do you write new playlets? Do you go with the same format from this year? What's planned for next year? Have you thought of it?
I don't know what they're thinking of. I do think another play is probably in the works. That would happen is they would have one play would go, probably one of the gentlemen's will go, and then a new male play will come in.
Okay, so the pressure's on, Randy. You got to write something for next year.
Ooh.
Okay, have you thought of anything? Rehearsing and everything, you've got to be like, oh man, there's got to be a movie that I grew up with that I could create a character for this show.
Rehearsals happened so quickly for me that it was I didn't have much time to think. It was just cramming words
Yeah, you
into
just
my...
learn the words.
Yeah.
When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you a little bit about rehearsing. Go ahead. I didn't mean to die on stage.
I wanted to give you your star, your chance. You guys switch characters so frequently during 70 or 80 minutes of theater. Is that tough?
No, I don't think it's tough. I think that it's just a very tiring show is what makes it tough physically. Just because, when we're not on stage, like if Randy is on stage, I'm getting dressed for the next play, and then I go on stage, and then when I leave and Randy's on stage, I'm getting dressed again for the next play. So
you're busy. You're not just sitting there waiting.
The whole time. No. Yeah, so you're just constantly getting ready for the next one and changing, and then the plays are also high. Like I'm in 4, and my first 3 are all like, they're screaming. Only one of those plays is my fault, but it's just so there's all 3 of them are such high energy. It's physically It's physically pretty tiring.
How many shows do you do a week?
8.
Wow. Do you have any dark days?
Monday.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're going to have to take our first break. Thanks some of our underwriters. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. We're live at Theater Works in Hartford. We're on the stage of Christmas.
Christmas on the Rocks from Theater
Total
Works in
mind.
Hartford.
See, that's why I'm not a theater actor, Mark. I can't turn to the crowd and go, line, please.
And you're
I've
listening
done
to 89.5 FM WSKB.
We'll be right back.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. It is Thursday, December 6th on the Westfield News Radio Show. It'll be Friday, December 7th on
Artsbeat Radio.
Yeah, depending. And then Friday, December
14th. So
14th.
you have several opportunities to hear or watch this program, and we hope you will. We're live on the stage of Christmas on the Rocks at Theater Works in Hartford, Connecticut. If you're interested in getting tickets, and I hope you do, I've seen it 4 times. I would come back and see it again.
So he marks that crazy, stalker guy. Been here 4 times.
As long as he
Not
pays.
this year.
Just
Four
once
times.
a year.
Once a year. Right.
twhartford.org, and it's well worth your while. Don't bring the kids. It's an adult comedy, and you can read my review in the Westfield News online, and I've said literally it's 90 minutes of hilarious laughter.
It is. It's a great show. The last Friday night, November 30th, was my first time seeing the show. As I said earlier, I laughed for the entirety of it. So thank you to the 3 of you for entertaining me for that night. It was well worth the evening. It was well worth. Before we went to break, Jen, you made a comment about rehearsing. So I did want to talk to you about that.
Sure.
When did you guys find out that you were going to be in the show? When did you get the script? When did you start rehearsing? And opening night was last week. So what's the lead time up to that? So how far in advance did you guys know?
When I first was invited to do the show, I do believe that I was asked about 3 weeks before we started rehearsal, and then we had rehearsal. At that time, I believe it was almost 2 weeks. So I had one play that I pretty much kind of memorized a little bit before coming in, but I did have a pretty decent amount of time, and I still didn't quite have my lines down until year 2. But Randy's was different this year.
So when did rehearsal start? So I'm just trying to get a calendar in my head of how. So if opening night was last week, the end of November, when did rehearsal start?
I started on the Wednesday, the week before Thanksgiving, and then
oh my God,
so you had a week.
Yeah, and rehearsed until right before Thanksgiving. We had Thanksgiving off, and then we came back and had a day and headed into tech, and then opened.
Holy smoke, that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, it was very
yeah,
fast. It was really fast. And I knew I was doing the show about a little less than a week before I came up here.
Wow. And so, Tom, I'm sure you were same time schedule?
That was about the same schedule the year before. I replaced the former bartender, and I didn't get a lot of notice. And probably my own stupidity. There are 7 plays in the show, and I came with one. You probably remember. Did we ever do the one with the?
You didn't.
No. I came with one almost memorized. I really wanted to woodshed and get this thing under my belt. And it turned out they weren't doing that play. So that put me back a bit. But it was the same rehearsal schedule that he had. And that's fast.
It's fast.
So how do you balance life with that kind of
There's no life.
Oh, thanks. Next question. But that's, as a audience member, as a spectator, whatever you want to call it, that's what I admire really most about it. You're able to take the script in a week and then, a little more than a week and turn it into an amazing performance. Is it sun up to sundown plus a few hours just memorizing? Do you have somebody in your family, your partner that you bounce things off of? How do you get it done?
All of that.
Yeah.
And all of us have tricks for lines. My trick is to record my cues, leave space for my lines so that after I know them to a certain extent, so you hear a voice as opposed to reading the words.
That's a good idea.
You hear a voice and then there's silence and you have to get the line in. That helps me. Everybody has different things to do. But,
Oh, God, and if my voice is different every night, does it mess you up?
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy, I'm so sorry.
Who are you?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. One thing that everybody, the joke among actors is how you memorize all those lines. It ain't a big deal because there's lines that are associated with movement. And it's like dancers, I imagine. There's a lot of muscle memory. And I'm supposed to be picking up that bottle on that line. You associate it with women.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So from the time you get the script, you do your rehearsals, and then are you doing your rehearsals here on the stage? You guys off-site somewhere?
We're mostly upstairs. There's basically, they recreated the stage in the bar upstairs in the rehearsal room.
Rehearsal room.
Yeah.
Okay, and because there's something else going on here?
They were, I think they were building the set. I think the
Okay.
river had just closed. So they were loading in this set.
Oh, interesting.
But then we were here
Pretty
2 days
quickly.
before tech. Yeah.
And
Okay.
normally you don't get onto a set until tech. So
Gotcha.
we actually got to be here a couple days
Oh,
early
a
because
little early Christmas
they know what
gift
they're
there, huh?
doing here by 6. They really know what they're doing here. You
That's
just kind of
funny.
like do what they say because they've got it.
But so when you get into Tech Week, so is it an all-day event? How does, I'm not a theater person, so I'm asking you stupid questions, and I get that. But I want to make sure I understand the theater world. So Tech Week is a term that's used where you're on set, you're in costume, and you're actually doing run-throughs, and the director sort of tweaks it?
They're usually setting up lighting and sound adjustments. So some techs you run through, but usually it's a lot of stop and starting.
Gotcha.
I mean, because the show had been teched 6 times and everybody knows the show, it was a different process. And because the shows are shortish, but often it's usually 10 out of 12s, which are basically from noon until midnight, a few days in a row. But ours were shorter because we got through it faster. People know the show, we knew the show, and I think we mostly just would run and then stop and go back and just get a certain points in every scene and then do the next scene.
Cues are
It's
right.
also worth saying that, by the way, the set should get a kudo also. This set has been built for 8 years, whatever.
6.
6 years. And so it has a personality of its own. And the first tech rehearsals you're usually doing in most plays, you're doing using a new set. So the door doesn't work, or that we have to have a wall there. Those things are happening.
So
while
they
you're-
take this set at the end of the run and they store it and then
Yes.
bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And tech meaning standing for technical elements. So that's
Gotcha.
when you bring your technical elements, which is your set, your lights, your sound, your music, if you have any, and your costumes, wigs, and makeup, and you bring all those elements together. That's why it's called tech.
Gotcha. And then you try and bring them all, and hopefully by the end of it, you got it down, right?
Hopefully.
I don't know how
you
you
need
guys,
a few previews.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do the costume changes. I mean, you don't, but
No.
they do. Those wigs are phenomenal, and the costumes are pretty funny themselves.
Oh, we have a crew. Cece runs backstage, and so she helps. She does everything. She does wigs and costumes, and
She
makes sure I
reminds me to
wipes,
turn the
and
light
she
off.
says, "Here's your code," and so she deals with props, and so we have an amazing stage management team.
So have each of you worked in television or movies? So how is live theater differ from like a TV or movie? Because you cut, try it again.
Right.
You don't get that opportunity on a Friday night or a Saturday
We were
night.
talking about that just the other day.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's
and it's
gotta be-
very different.
It's got to be much harder.
You don't have the. It's different in a lot of ways. When you're doing a TV role, unless you're doing a lead role where you are calling the shots about how many times you can do it, you don't have continuity. Most of us are hired to do a job in 1, 2, or 3 days, which means hitting the marks and doing it in a couple of takes. There's not a lot of investment in that. This is all about investment. Well, by the time that tech rehearsal is over, then you have some friendly people come in for a dress rehearsal, and it's all about now having a real arc. You don't really have that in movies
That's a
unless
good
you're
point.
playing a lead role and you have a chance to work months ahead of time.
Right. You come in, do your piece for
Do
a day
your
or
piece,
two, and
hit
you're
the
out.
mark and get out.
Wow. Oh, don't forget to pay
Jerry
me too.
Orbach said to me, Tom, my first time, he said, "Tom, we like to have it in the can in 2 takes." Warning.
Oh, you should have volunteered to be the dead guy then. I
I did. I got killed 4 times on Law and Order.
Jealous, rag,
Exactly.
rag, Tom.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. So,
Yeah.
for you guys, what do you think of the comparison between the small screen and live stage?
Well, the thing that I like about live performance is I have the control, and I'm controlling it. Once it's like, and you're on, or you hear the music, or you hear the cue, it's up to me to deliver the story. Of course, with my scene partner, it's up to us to get the story done. And I like sort of the responsibility of that. I like the danger of that. I like knowing, like, well, they can't stop me once I'm up there. Like, I'm just gonna do it. And there's something just that's like, it's in my hands. The audience's experience, to an extent, is largely in my hands. And there's also things that go with that are like really heavy and exhausting, and there's a lot that goes along with that as well. But with film and television, it is just, you're in so many cases you're the last piece of the puzzle.
Right.
You're just the last element that comes in, and they're like, hurry up and let's just get, and then we have to move on and spend hours lighting something that you only get like one take for.
Right.
And it's so, I did a movie recently where I had one take with my scene partner, and then they had to turn around and do a shot of the door closing, and the door closing got 6 takes. And I said, so the door gets 6 takes and I get 1. It's just, that's what it is. It's just how it goes. And there are other elements of that are great. I love film and TV if I get to do the editing. That Randy and I
Wouldn't
made.
everybody, right?
Yeah, well, Randy and I made a TV show a couple years ago, and
Which
a
one?
web series. It's called New York is Dead. You can watch it on funnyordie.com.
Very funny.
Okay.
And
I will have to go look at that.
That was a great experience,
Yeah.
but
we had all the control.
But we had all the control, so it's very different.
Very
What would
good.
you say, Randy?
I mean, I would just echo that, pretty much that exact same thing. I love doing theater because, I mean, when the show's about to start, if you trust and care, like your other actors, you're just like, this is ours. Let's go do this. We own this. We own this space. We can give the audience what they want, and we can collectively, not edit, but change the pace. Or, we're working together and collaborating almost wordlessly, like beyond the text and with the audience. And that's a thrill. And there is sort of a very different experience when you're going in on camera, because you just go in and you're naturalistic and you try to play the scene with the other person, but you don't know how they're going to edit it, what they're going to put it together. A lot of times you don't even have the full script. Sometimes you have dummy sides until you show up at the thing and you realize that your character says something different. I mean,
Right.
it's
Sometimes
just
you're acting with, a PA, or it's not
a
your
piece
actor.
of tape attached to the camera so that
Yeah.
your eye line is, it's just a very different
Wow.
thing.
Mark said something interesting about how the show, with all these little skits, comes together and pays off at the end. And that reminded me when you said it is our responsibility, and that's fun. When you go out and you know that you have a responsibility, if I did that bigger, then I wouldn't be able to get to the next place, and it wouldn't pay off at the end. And this show really pays off at the end.
Oh,
so
it does.
It's
Absolutely.
our responsibility. Well put.
I've got to ask you guys a question as actors. This show was 6 years ago was a new concept and a new show, and it was the kind of like the non-traditional holiday show, and now it's been around 6 years and it's traditional. People come every year to TheaterWorks.
Traditional, non-traditional.
Traditional, non-traditional. But all of you in acting some of you have created new roles for the very first time in a play versus jumping in and doing something that's already there. What's more of a challenge? Going into something brand new that's never been done before and being part of that creative process, or trying to maintain the creative standards of a show like Christmas on the Rocks?
Well, Jen, you were in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, right?
I was.
Because that's the play we saw out at Berkshire Theater Group, right?
I don't think we saw Jen in that. I don't remember.
I was in it a couple years ago at BTF.
You were the
Okay.
Yeah. I was May, the pregnant woman.
That's right. Well, that was the night we went. The night that a bat flew
in.
on the stage.
Oh, that was
and
opening night. It was amazing.
Yeah,
That's an equity bat.
But they stopped.
That's when I was walking on stage and it was my line and everyone was standing around and I backed in and I'm talking and everyone was just waiting around.
Right.
And they were and then a bat flew and then no one was saying anything. I went, oh, this is crazy, and stopped the show because there's a bat everywhere. No one's watching us.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
That was so fun.
But to Mark's point,
Right.
to replicate an old, a character that's already been done, versus create something from scratch.
If I can, That's a great question. There are two different sets of difficulties. When you say create an old character, first of all, every character in traditional theater has been done. You're creating it from the beginning. These are, for me and Randy, these are not. These are, so the set of difficulties with this is making sure that the show, which has a definite shape, a proven value that you're meeting at, and that's a kind of a strain. That's harder. I'd prefer the strain of creating something from scratch. But once you have it, then it's very rewarding. But creating something from scratch is always a fear that I'm going to be terrible and I won't be able to do this. But it's to me that's thrilling.
Do you have more freedom when you create a role from scratch than when you go into something that's been around, like in your case, Randy, where Alan Cumming had done Cabaret and you starred in it on the tour? Did people say, be like Alan Cumming, or did they say, what is Randy Harrison bringing to the role?
They didn't. I feel I've done a lot more of like replacing and recreating roles, and I find it like liberating to some extent to see. It helps me to see what other people did, and then it opens things up in me that maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know if I would have found in creating it entirely on my own. That's been my experience. I'm much more intimidated when I'm completely starting from scratch. I need a lot more support in the room, and well, it depends on the writing, but
That's very generous, Randy.
it's how it works for me.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
We need to take a break. It's coming up on the top of the hour. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. We're live at Theater Works in Hartford. Christmas on the Rocks stage is where we sit. Jen Harris, Tom Bloom, and Randy Harrison are our guests. We're going to take a break. Thank some of our underwriters. We'll be right back.
Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here.
Christmas time is coming. There's snow falling on the street. The holidays are near. Shoppers buying Christmas trees. We'll have a ball. We'll have a dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. The New Year's Eve is coming. We'll all sing the old lang syne. I'll whisper in your ear. I'll be yours, so please be mine. We'll have a ball. We'll have a dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. This is the time for love. This is the time for cheer. Sitting by the fireplace, I tell you how much I love you, my dear. This is the time for love. This is the time for cheer. We'll have a ball. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. The New Year's Eve is coming. We'll all sing the old lang syne. I'll whisper in your ear. I'll be yours, so please be mine. We'll have a ball. Dancing and all. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Bells are ringing, children singing. Christmas time is here. Bells are ringing, children singing. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here. Christmas time is here.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. Thursday, December 6, 2018, just after the top of the hour. Mark G. Auerbach is my guest co-host today. We're down here in Hartford at Theater Works.
Yeah, we're on the set of Christmas on the Rocks, which is running through December 23rd. twhartford.org for your tickets, and you better get your tickets now because there are two.
Don't walk. Right?
Run,
Is that the
don't
old
walk.
phrase?
This is my first choice of shows for the holiday season. And with us, Tom Bloom, Jen Harris, and Randy Harrison, who are the three people who must play a dozen characters over the course of 90 laugh-filled minutes.
Now, and it's playlets was the term you used, right? It's individual little.
I've heard people say that it's 7 sketches. Well, I don't use S words well on the radio, so because of my sibilant S sound, so I call them playlets.
Good for you.
I made up the
What is
word.
wrong with you?
I made up the word.
Playlet's great.
It works.
I think it's
It
great.
works. So I will say, ladies and gentlemen, I went and saw the show. Was Friday the 30th opening night? Mm-hmm. It was. So I saw. Wow, I was at opening night to a major performance. Go figure. I saw it on opening night. It was downright hilarious. I was expecting to laugh. Mark told me to get ready, to laugh nonstop throughout the performance. Sometimes I take things with a grain of salt when Mark tells me, but he was absolutely right this time. So it was a wonderful show. I said this earlier in the evening, or earlier in the show. Thank you to the three of you for entertaining me that night. It was fantastic. I applaud each of your skills. But we also talked about the nuances, the little things that kind of the walking, the tilting of the head, whatever it might be. And these are the things that you and Randy, you mentioned it, in a small setting like this, which is under 200 seats. You're really engaged with the audience, and the audience. I mean, they're right there. That's what I love about small theater too, as a spectator, as an audience member, because you're right there. And it really is fantastic to experience that. So I urge everybody, run, don't walk to the website. I guess you don't really have to go anywhere. Just log on, right?
Yeah, just log on.
Yeah. Just limber up your fingers for the typing.
I know that with the bright lights, you don't see the audience necessarily, but I know that for not Christmas on the Rocks, but the prior show, I was sitting in the last row, and it's as though a performance is happening in your living room. I mean, it's
It really
that
is.
close, and you see nuances and things that you definitely don't see when you go see a Broadway show in a big Broadway house.
Well, and one of the little nuances is the very opening of the show, where Tom's alone in the bar, and he's clicking through the TV. I can't tell you how many times, because I was sitting over here, I can't tell you how many times I looked up. I did the same. I must have looked up 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Hook, line, and sinker, I bought it.
Special skills.
Got it. I believe
on the
it.
back of your headshot, right?
Yeah,
Your special
right.
skills, right? But it's the nuances like that in a small theater that just it makes it wonderful. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to ask, you're here through the end of December. What are your future plans? Do you have things scheduled after this, or how does it work?
Nothing for me.
Well, I go home to see my family for the holidays in Chicago, and then I'm currently writing a show for a web entity with my friend Jeff Hiller. So we're writing that the next 2 months.
Yeah, I just have family holiday plans. I'm sort of away until after New Year's, and then I need to stay put in New York because I've been away.
So you're based.
Huge amount.
All three of you are based in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask each of you. Let's go around. Where did you grow up? Where did you learn your skill? When did you realize you wanted to be an actor? Randy?
I'm from Nashua, New Hampshire.
Oh, so you're not far from here.
No, not far. And I started acting. I mean, I would see the tours come through Boston from the age of like 4 or 5, and I started acting in community theater in Nashua Actor Singers, it was called. I think it's still there. Probably when I was like 6.
Okay.
And I always
through middle school, high school.
never stopped.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Jen, where'd you grow up?
I grew up outside of Chicago in a little cornfield town, like 40 minutes west.
Which is pretty much everything outside Chicago.
Anything 30 minutes
Yeah.
radius, whether it's the water or Wisconsin.
Or corn,
It's cornfields. And I didn't really, I didn't know I wanted to do theater really until I got to college.
Really?
I didn't really do a play until my junior year. And then I played Adelaide in Guys and Dolls, and something just sort of like made sense. And
So what was your major in college?
well,
And then
no, I went to like an all-girls Catholic math and science academy, so
Okay.
I was pre-med driven, and I applied to pre-med school, and then I also applied to theater school. And my father, when I got into Boston, I went to Boston University, and I went to their actor training program, and my father actually encouraged me to go there instead of med school. And I don't know if he made the right, I don't know if I listened to the right, but I have a very different parents.
Well, I was that was going to be the question. Was I can only imagine that Thanksgiving dinner, you come home and you go, you know, Mom, Dad, the whole med school thing. Yeah, it's not cutting it.
I think they just knew their kids.
So have you gotten to play a doctor on Grey's Anatomy or something?
Not yet,
I feel like you played a nurse. I
played a nurse, but that was Guiding Light, and it was actually really funny because I was terrible. I went to Boston. I went to Boston University, and I didn't really. That first week I was there, I knew I was like, oh, this is where I want to be, and and I studied a semester at Lambda in London, and yeah.
Good for you, Tom. How about?
I'm from just north of D.C. in Chevy Chase, and no theater in me at all. I was raised as a musician, and when I went to college, a little school in Maryland, Western Maryland College, the woman who ran the department asked me if I wanted to be a show. I was waiting on her table. It was a small school, and I did, and I kind of got bit with them, but I never figured I was going to go into it. And I went into the Navy, and as a musician. Came out of the Navy and went to grad school. By that time, I decided to do some theater as a director, and then I slipped back into acting in I guess, from 1970 on. Excuse me, and it just went from there. So
well, it's interesting, Randy, you have a different story than these guys, where you knew from a very early age. Where you guys didn't really get until college, So if you had the opportunity to sit in front of a young person, maybe 10 years old or such, I mean, what would you advise them as far as acting in theater and performing arts?
A 10-year-old, you said?
Sure, 10, 15, pick an age. I don't care. I just pulled that out of my ear, Jen. Come on.
No, sure. I would. You mean if I saw that I would, my niece, my younger niece, she's 9, and she shows very creative tendencies. And she shows very independent and strong, outgoing, creative tendencies. And we just keep encouraging her to go in all those directions and keep putting things in front of her. Like, you want to do dance, you want to sing, play the piano. We just keep putting it in front of her and seeing what she responds to, and encouraging her, not discouraging her from any ideas that she comes up with that might not conform to a norm.
Right.
And I think that's something that was really helpful for me, that I was encouraged. It didn't quite happen until I was a junior in high school, because I was trying to conform to what the schooling and where I grew up was, which was supportive but a little conformative. And then once I was encouraged to go with something that made sense to me and was really lighting me up, that's when it kind of fell into place. And I think when I see younger people or people wanting to go into this industry, if I see them really lit up about it, then yes, I would encourage them.
Now, the three of you are very successful in your career. Do you ever get invited back to your hometowns to talk to maybe your old elementary school, middle school, whatever it might be, and say?
I went back to my high school. My high school theater director, who was really a wonderful theater director and formative to me. He retired. He had like a 50th anniversary of teaching, like being the head of that program, and then a retirement. And I went back both times and performed like a song and talked to the students. It was really meaningful to me, actually. They're still in like this theater that I grew up performing in.
That's interesting.
What'd you sing?
I had to go back and sing the stuff that I sang in high school.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What shows did you do in high school?
The musicals I did a lot of plays, mostly plays, but the musicals we did Guys and Dolls, I did Into the Woods.
Were you the baker?
No, I was Jack.
Gorgeous.
I was Jack. Yeah.
Just Jack.
I'd like add a little bit about talking to younger people. Little older than your niece, perhaps, but I think one thing that is really important, I would say to everybody who aspires to be in the arts, is to get a rounded education. We all know hundreds of actors who have done nothing but that all their lives, and in this day and age, not when I started, but in such a competitive time when school is so important to have, graduate school is so important to have, the debt you're going to have the rest of your life are important. It's easy for people to focus only on that.
Right.
We need actors who know about history, who know.
Well, because it makes you a more well-rounded actor too, right?
Without any question. I'm a director, and many times I've noticed when somebody, and before you call somebody back, somebody that's very interested in me, when I call them back, I find out they've had another life.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference. Parochial actors, there's a limited half-life of that, I think.
That's a good point.
Let me ask you a question. If you're in dance, for example, ballet or jazz, you take a class every day. And if you're a singer, you get vocal coached. Do you, as actors, continue to take training of any kind, take classes to kind of hone your craft or keep your craft in shape, especially when you leave stage theater to do TV or write or direct?
Early in my career, I was in class all the time, like basically from when I graduated to college until my early 30s, I was in acting class. And I continue to do something, whether I'm taking a writing class or I did improv for a number of years. I still, if I'm doing a lot of singing, then I'll go do vocal coaching classes. I'm usually doing something. But a lot of times when I'm working enough, I feel like collaborating with the other actors and the director and writers is a lesson in itself. So when I am working, I don't feel a need to supplement too much. It's usually between jobs.
So if a guy my age says, all right, you know what, I'm going to give up the newspaper business, I want to be an actor, what's the first piece of advice you'd give me?
Don't.
I'd say it sounds like
What, do you
you're
like
doing,
eating food?
Sounds like you're doing great. I don't know. I would suggest taking a class in basic like acting 101, voice and speech 101, movement, acting, voice and speech movement, improv class, and then reading some different types of acting techniques, and seeing a lot of live performance. I would just see a lot. I would watch a lot, and I would see a lot. And that's something like, I want to take more classes and stuff, and I do find myself a lot of learning and keeping myself muscles moving is also by seeing theater and seeing live performance and looking at art and going downtown and going to Midtown and seeing things that are great and seeing things that are bad and seeing dance and seeing performance art and just making sure that I'm witnessing what I do as well.
Were you a dancer when you were younger? Because there are some moves you make on stage that
Thank you.
make me think you had to have stretched out at some point.
I actually was not a dancer as a
Wow.
kid. I guess I do a lot of yoga. I've been in sports my whole life,
Okay.
and I do a lot of yoga.
Yeah, so you're
and-
flexible. Right.
Yeah, and I also, every now and then I keep working with a choreographer called Chris Catelli, who will put me in some shows. And I was in a dance show with him, and it required like just dancing, and you just have to, he'll make you a dancer, and you just work with some of the most amazing, I've worked with some of the most amazing dancers in New York City, the top, and they just sort of by watching them, I try really hard to be them. Maybe it's more just like effort and energy that you're seeing, that like I'm making you think I'm a dancer when I'm really not.
To maintain the energy that you guys have to have through a 90-minute show 8 times a week, do you change your regimen? Do you go to the gym at certain times, eat at certain times? Because you expend so much energy on stage in 90 minutes. This play, Christmas on the Rocks, is so physical. How do you do it?
Go ahead, Tom.
My path is a little different from these two. I don't have an energetic path in the play. I have my energy has to go toward being alert and just being listening all the time. That's a different thing. These guys have to do gymnastics. So I don't know what you do every day. I don't alter my path, my procedure when I come in here. I have little. We all have little weird things that we don't admit to. But my day path is not very. I do a bunch of different things.
It's funny you say that. Athletes are the same way. They have their routines, things that they do, whether it's they lace up their skates or, tar their bat, whatever it might be. But we need to take a break. So you're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show. We're with the stars of Christmas on the Rocks from Theater Works in Hartford. Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris are our guests with Mark Auerbach and I. We're going to thank our underwriters, play some music, and we'll be right back.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. It is about 21 past the hour. We are live down in Hartford at Theater Works, right on the stage. This is my big debut, Mark. I'm on the stage.
You've been on weren't you in some radio mystery where you got killed off in the first 10 minutes?
It was called War of the Worlds. We did that in Westfield.
That's funny.
I have it's funny. I have this requirement if I'm ever asked, because of my role with the Westfield News, if I'm ever asked to participate in any sort of stage performance, I go, you need to kill me. I don't care. So
Patrick, it was a demand that you made to the director.
Right. So we did we did War of the Worlds a few years ago, and the director or the creator, whatever his name was, asked me. He goes, Patrick, I really want you in on this show. I go, all I ask is I get killed. Sure enough, I played a reporter. I was out there. I got crushed by a meteor or something, a spaceship. I don't remember, but
Dreams come true.
Absolutely. See. But
I believe you
anyway.
got hit by a Martian death ray.
Sure.
Yes.
I don't remember because I'm
Yeah.
dead. I don't remember those things. But anyway, so we're live back here with Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris. Good day, lady and gentlemen. Thanks again for joining Mark and I. I really do appreciate it. Before we went to break, we started to talk about routines and things that we do to, Mark and I have our routines for these shows. Mark gets here early, down 7 cups of coffee. I just show up, But each of you as professional actors, you must have, you go live, the curtain goes up at 8 p.m. So, what is it, starting at 5 o'clock? Do you start to get into, okay, I need to get my head straight? Do you review the script? What do you guys do to kind of get in the zone, as it were, leading up to the curtain going up?
I swear by naps, personally. I love naps. And because you need the focus of your energy in the day to be happening usually when everybody else is winding down. I mean, everybody's winding down, and that's when you go on stage
live,
and perform for them.
You can't have a sleepy actor.
I know. But I also find it really difficult to go right to sleep after a show because you're usually like a little adrenalized and you just want to talk to people. And but I still function really best in the morning. So I still kind of wake up kind of early, but then not that early, but for an actor kind of early.
For an actor early, yeah.
But
Before or after the Today Show ends?
After the Today Show.
Still early.
But then I need to usually I need to take a brief nap usually around 4 or so, and then I wake up around 5:30 and begin the long process.
I like to take a brief nap from 4 to 5:30.
I can't do those 20-minute naps. I need an hour and a half.
Amazing.
But it actually takes me. I mean, most of the time is just spent laying and doing a meditation. But it's just time where I'm not on the computer talking to friends, working out, running errands.
Do you review the script again one last time before you head out, even though you're doing it over and over?
I have for this because the rehearsal process was so short, so this stuff is still really kind of superficially in my head. But once it shows up and running for a little while, it's usually there. Unless I screw something up the night before, then I'll go back and make sure.
Very good.
Yeah.
Jen,
You have no understudies in this, so do you guys have brush-up rehearsals or?
No, I think we're pretty okay with this.
Yeah, stage management keeps it tight.
Yeah, stage management keeps it tight.
They got you by the
No worries. Yeah.
Jen, how about for you? Any routines?
I have to make sure that I eat a couple hours before I go to the theater. I have to have at least 2 hours before I go to the theater to eat a good strong meal. It has to digest, so I have to make sure I eat before 5.
So you catch the early bird special with all the senior citizens?
Yeah, I'm with them. I have to make sure I eat a big meal and get that done before 5. And with shows that, for this show, it's just voice and stretching is important because there's a lot of vocal energy. And so I'll steam my voice, my throat with a steamer, or take a hot shower or something for a while, and then stretch if I haven't gone to the gym and stretched, and just make sure that my voice is clear.
Make sure the pipes are working, exactly.
Yeah. And tea.
There you go. And Tom, how about for you? You've been doing this a while.
That's interesting. Around 4 o'clock every day, there's a certain recognition. Your body's telling you, okay.
Get ready.
Yeah. And
Time to go to work.
And it's a little bit of nervousness in a way. So I get into this, but I cannot eat at all before. You're probably, I don't know if you're cutting out my stomach rumbling.
I thought they were hiding some cats in the back.
No,
I didn't know
that's
what
what
that
it
noise
is.
was.
Yeah. But and then I come into the show an hour early. Usually, I run my whole voice tape every night to my voice cue tape just to rattle it off. One night I didn't this week, 2 shows ago.
Really?
And I blew a major line on her.
It wasn't major.
Well, I mean, we've skipped who you were.
Well, we figured it. They figured it out.
And then afterwards, I'm right to the bar and eating and just,
It's interesting because when I was here for the Friday night show, Freddie had said to me, she goes, stick around afterwards. I want to introduce you to you guys and Jacques, so I'd get to know you before today. And it's interesting, Randy, because you said afterwards you're all hyped up and you're adrenalized. I'm thinking the last thing you guys want to do after the show is socialize. I figured you're wiped out, but I didn't think about, you've been on under the lights for an hour and a half. You're still hyped and ready to go. So I kind of begged off. I'm like, Freddie, I'll catch up with them next week. I don't want to bother you guys. You're ready to go home. Unwind.
That's actually kind of you.
Yeah.
That's actually, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm revved up after a show, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have the energy to engage with a new person in the way that I would that I normally would if it was before a show, or if I met them on a day that I wasn't doing a show, because there's a different kind of energy that it's like it's an internal thing where my body needs to shut down, but I'm so tired after a show. So sometimes it's difficult meeting people after a show, only because I can't fully be there with you in a weird way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Same way.
Makes sense.
It's interesting, Tom. You made that mention where you missed a line or a cue the other night, and kind of might have thrown things off a little bit. My girls, I have two girls. They were dancers when they were younger, competitive dancers. They're now 21 and 19. So, and whenever they get off stage, they'd be like, "Oh man, I missed that," and I go, "No one knew."
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did.
Exactly. That's it. So to Jen's point, you may have missed one thing, but the audience probably had no idea. They picked up on who the character was.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself giving yourself that same advice? Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Don't pause. Don't hesitate, because then people pick up on something happened.
You do that, even though when I realized something had gone wrong, that I'd missed something, I had to check myself from, don't go there, keep moving.
Yeah.
I played a lot of basketball, and I had one guy who used to say, "Tommy, that play's over," when I'd miss a layup.
Yeah.
So I always say, "Tommy, that play's over. Move, you got to move forward."
That must be what an acting coach does too. Is just say, keep going, keep going. Unless you're in TV or film where you get the cut, let's retake or whatever it is. In stage, you just keep moving, right?
Yeah.
Has anything in the run of Christmas on the Rocks stopped the show the way the bat flying into Cat on a Hot Tin Roof stopped the show?
Yeah, I sure stopped the show my first year when I just called line because I didn't get a cue and I couldn't figure it out, and we couldn't figure it out, and I just went line.
Oh, that's
It was
funny.
awful. It was the most traumatic
And yet
theatrical experience.
that
of my life.
galvanizes an audience. The audience is instantly on your side then.
Well,
something goes wrong.
They realize you're human.
Yeah, and
I don't know if the playwright thought I was really human.
Well,
He
I
was
know,
in the
but
audience.
playwrights aren't human themselves. But when something goes wrong, there's some. I know when I see it, there's something real happening right then, and you want to. How are they going to deal with that bat?
It's funny because
Even line.
if you watch Saturday Night Live and you see them start to crack up a little bit, you're right. They ingratiate the audience. The audience comes into them a little bit, and you're like, all right.
You're involved.
Exactly. Well, thank you all. This has been fantastic.
Great
I've
questions.
certainly learned a lot about what you do, what actors do, your successes, and so forth. So thank each of you for joining Mark and I. Randy Harrison, Tom Bloom, and Jen Harris, thanks again. Christmas on the Rocks at TheaterWorks Hartford. Mark, dates, times, locations?
Pearl Street, downtown Hartford, tworkshartford.org, and the show runs through December 23rd, and it is the non-traditional Christmas holiday tradition here in Western New England.
It is.
And who do we have coming up next?
Next is Jacques Lamar, who's a Hartford-based playwright who has written one of the playlets, or two actually, for Christmas on the Rocks. To get a chance to talk to him. He had a show here last year called The Raging Skillet, which was one of the most hilarious plays I've ever seen, and they passed around food during the show. What more could you ask for?
Why didn't you call me for that one? I like to eat.
Well, I forgot. I needed a double portion.
Also, Jacques is a great bartender. Ask him about that.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm doing a drink swap with some friends in a couple weeks, so
It's
I'll
a
need.
special kind of bartender.
There you
ask
go.
You got to ask him.
Thank you all for joining Mark and I. Appreciate it. We're going to take a break. Thanks some of our underwriters, and when we come back, we'll have Jacques Lamar.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. 37 minutes past the hour. You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show, special edition of the Westfield News Radio Show. Are you sitting down for this? If If you haven't been listening, Mark Auerbach, the famous Mark Auerbach, is my co-host this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be here with the famous Patrick Belly.
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah.
This is a blast. This is one of my favorite shows. I love getting out of our element, out of the Studio 120, off campus, wherever the radio show is normally done, and getting down to venues like this, which are fantastic. We're in TheaterWorks.
We're on the stage where Christmas on the Rocks is playing. We have one of the playwrights who's written 2/7 of the playlets
Wow.
that are involved in Christmas on the Rocks, Jacques Lamar. And I happen to you think I'm funny. I think Jacques Lamar is funny. So I hope that those of you listening this morning get a couple of chuckles in between now and the end of the program.
It just dawned on me because I saw Jacques' beads on his wrist. You were sitting in front of me last Friday night.
Oh, was I?
Yes.
Oh, I hope I wasn't misbehaving.
No,
okay.
but I don't know who was laughing louder, you or me.
Oh, God.
It was a wonderful performance. Wonderful performance.
My sister, who actually lives up in Longmeadow, says that she loves going to see my plays because she thinks I laugh harder than anybody in the audience. And it's not because I think I'm so funny. I just love the way actors bring
What
the
you
stories
write,
to life
exactly.
and make things funnier than I thought they could be.
Well, thanks for joining Mark and I this morning. I really do appreciate it.
I'm in the middle of a fame sandwich between the two of you. I'm very excited.
There's a bad joke in there somewhere,
is.
but
Somewhere
this
there's
is
a joke.
family radio, right? It's like Tiny Tim walks into a bar, right?
Exactly.
So, Mark informs me that you are not a full-time playwright.
No, although sometimes it feels like I have two full-time jobs because I have a number of different projects, either on stage or getting prepared to go on stage, or I'm writing. So there are some days when I come home from my full-time job, which I work for a company called Buzz Engine, and we put on marketing. We do marketing and events, and I get home and I put on the playwright hat and so
Bring out the pencil. Do you pen to paper or are you on the computer?
No, on the computer.
Oh,
on the computer, which is really great until the day that your script disappears.
Exactly.
So, which has
I
happened to
pictured
me.
you as the with the notebook in front of you, just jotting things down.
No, that's
tapping away, huh?
Tapping away. I mean, Eddie Sanchez, who wrote the Clara from the Nutcracker piece in Christmas on the Rocks, he writes his stuff in longhand.
Wow.
And then when he types it in, that's when he edits the piece.
Okay, makes sense.
But to me, I can write twice as fast if I'm typing than if I'm handwriting.
Okay.
And then I don't have to wonder, what did I write? So
I can't read that.
yeah, I don't have to worry about typos.
Former doctor in your past life can't read your own handwriting?
No, it's gotten worse and worse. I've gotten older.
So of the 7 playlets that are part of Christmas on the Rocks, you have written 2. Which 2?
I wrote Charlie Brown. The piece is called Merry Christmas, Blockhead. And that has been in the show all 6 years.
Okay.
And then last year, right from the beginning of Christmas on the Rocks, Rob wanted Zuzu from It's a Wonderful Life as one of the characters in the show. And there just wasn't the playwright that he had in mind for it said, I'm just too busy this year, and he kept going back to him, but he just couldn't get it was David Lindsay Hebert to have time to write the piece because he's incredibly busy. And so last year he came to me and said, I really want to do Zuzu, and so I was given the opportunity to write a second piece. So a lot of people don't know who Zuzu is, which surprises me because she's got one of the biggest lines in that movie.
Well, and my wife and I have this battle because she can impersonate, the every time a bell, and it just like nails on a chalkboard to me. However, when Jen did it the other night, and I got the elbow in the side from my wife. It was, and again, that you and I were laughing. The twitch that Jen was doing.
She's unbelievably funny.
Perfect.
She's unbelievably funny.
Did you write it with her in mind?
Yeah. The hope is obviously that other theaters, other actors will have the chance to do it. But it's, knowing that she was going to do it, I knew that it needed to be as wacky as possible, and so
To meet her personality.
And so to chat with her, she's not insane, but when she's on stage, especially
She was
in
very
the
well
show,
composed during the last interview.
I mean, during the show, she's unbelievable in her 4 different characters, and they're all very different, but each of them has this kind of underlying Jen Harris wonderful sense of twisted humor.
Well, I don't know whether you heard when we were talking to them earlier. I laughed throughout, but the one thing I think I laughed at more was when Randy entered in the last piece and did the Charlie Brown walk.
Yes, which is not in the script.
That's what they said.
Not in the script.
He said he tried it, and then Jen picked up on it. I go, that's a perfect addition of the script.
And they wouldn't tell me. I saw it the same time you saw it, and so that was a not a shock, but a pleasant surprise that they're still finding stuff.
How much time did it take you to write these?
I'm a very fast writer, and Charlie Brown, I wrote a completely different script for the first draft, and we felt like it was maybe a little too dark and didn't necessarily take Charlie Brown on a real journey. And so what you're seeing in the show is actually my second take on it. But usually when I'm writing, I mean, the pieces are about 12 minutes or so, 13 minutes. So I think maybe a few hours. There are playwrights who agonize over every word and whatnot, and I just sit down and crank it out. Partially because I have a full-time job and don't have the luxury of
spending
forever.
your day writing these things, right?
And so, and I think Zuzu came very quickly because Rob already had the concept. She's afraid of bells. She keeps freaking out when the bells go off.
Patti LaBelle.
So.
You're giving away some laugh lines for people who haven't seen it.
Oh, that was funny.
So I mean, I think Raging Skillet, which you mentioned, I probably wrote that in 3 days. But then I've done rewrite after rewrite.
We should probably say that Raging Skillet was a full-length play that had its world premiere here at Theater Works, and it's about a chef and her Jewish mother. And the chef is well known. I can't.
Chef Rossi.
Chef Rossi. And she wrote a book, kind of a memoir, and you adapted it.
Yeah.
But in the course of the book and in the course of the handouts that were in the press kit, there were recipes for some of these kind of outlandish, cutting-edge
you told me about this.
Food things. And I brought an 18-year-old with me who said, you've got to try that potato chips and chocolate thing. And the recipe was included. And that was his takeaway from it was this show had the best food ever. And they would pass food around the audience. But that play has gone on from here and been done in other theaters. And it really has a life.
It's after it was here, we did a reading of it at the Jewish Play Project in New York. That was a one-night event with Judy Gold, the comic, and then it was at the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater up on the Cape this summer, and it just recently concluded a run at the New Jewish Theater in St. Louis, and we're going to be doing a reading of it in Cambridge. So if any of your listeners are around on December 17th, it'll be at the Nora Theater in Cambridge, and it's a free reading.
Has that play changed at all since or have you rewritten it or revised it since it played Theater Works?
Definitely I've added a few things. I've to try and give Mom a little bit more depth and changed some jokes. Tried to find the heart of the play. And it's really, the audiences have been loving it. So there were some people who were a little offended by it here, but I think overall the show is headed in a real positive direction, and it seems to have a life, which is nice.
How did you become a playwright? Like, why did you go to school for it? Where did this, or did you just, as life goes on, you're sitting in your office, maybe you're writing some things, you know what, I might be able to do this.
Well, I first started playwriting back in the 80s. I was working at a theater. My after school or summer job was working for a theater up in New Hampshire, where I'm from. And I asked the artistic director of the young company if I could write some of the children's plays, because they had to write generally about 6 original shows every summer. Wow. And they wouldn't repeat them. So my first masterwork was Rapunzel, and it was I decided to set it in Arabia, and it had this. I didn't yet know that you don't beat a joke into the ground once you have it, and so the witch was named Cobra the Sand Witch because they were in the desert and sandwich, and so by the end of the show, the audience was like,
sandwich.
And so I wrote 2 children's plays, and they were pretty successful. And then there was just this long stretch where I didn't write plays, except for in college. I took one playwriting class, and we did little short scenes for that. I wasn't a playwriting major. I wasn't a theater major. I wanted to be an English major. My father said he wouldn't pay for it, and he said, "You'll never make any money with an English degree." And now I write. So
exactly.
Thank you. It wasn't until about 15 years ago I started writing for a drag performer named Varla Jean Merman, who gave me the opportunity to co-write her shows that she does. And I don't know if you've ever seen her, Mark.
I saw her live at the Academy of Music in Northampton, and you had scripted a video of hers.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I help with co-writing videos. Right now, she's actually going to be performing in New Orleans with the New Orleans Philharmonic, and they wanted to have her rewrite Let It Go. It was still supposed to be for kids, which I thought was a bit of an odd choice to bring in a drag queen. But so I rewrote it from Let It Go to Yellow Snow, and that was rejected. So
isn't that Frank Zappa?
Yes.
You watch where the Huskies go and don't you eat that yellow snow? Something
Exactly,
like that. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was it was rejected. So now it's Let It Snow. Boring. But I did get some jokes in there. But these shows that Varla does, she does them up in Provincetown, and then she tours them around the country, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm going to go perform this over in London, or I'm going to perform at Joe's Pub in New York City, or I'm performing at the Sydney Opera House, and suddenly stuff that I write is going all over the world.
Global audience, yeah. That's got to be very reassuring to your talent.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting that she saw that in me, and so at a certain point, I was like, I really want to write for the theater again, because she does comedy cabaret stuff. So I've worked in theater administration for 25 years or so, maybe 30, between doing box office, doing group sales, a little bit of development work, marketing, public relations. And at a certain point after, and I'm sure you're this way, having seen a zillion plays at this point in your life, Mark, that you get to a point you're like, ugh, I could write a better play than that. And to me it was, I would see plays and I'd be like, oh, I would fix it this way, or I would have done this differently, or I never would have put this on the stage, or what have you. And it gets to a point where you're saying, if you're saying that to yourself and not actually doing it, you have no business saying it, because that person who took the time to write the play, and all the people who took the time to mount it, and all the effort, they made it happen. And so, it starts with the play, it starts with the words. And I was like, I really feel like I've got something to say, and started writing plays.
Are you at a point in your life where you can give up your full-time job and be a full-time playwright?
No. Short answer, no.
You want to think about that?
But as I mentioned, David Lindsay Bear, he's a playwright that I adore, and he wrote, I think it won the Pulitzer Prize, Rabbit Hole, which is a beautiful, heartbreaking, funny play. He's written some really kind of wacky stuff. They've done a few of his shows here, Kimberly Akimbo and Good People. And I brought him when I was working at the Mark Twain House. We were doing a playwrights panel. And he just said flat out, here's a Pulitzer Prize winner whose stuff is on Broadway, and he's, doing the book for Shrek the musical, and he's, and he is like, it is not possible to make a living being a playwright.
Really?
He said you can be a playwright and a teacher. You can be a playwright and someone who edits things or what have you. A lot of playwrights will write for television or screenwrite for film or what have you. But the issue with playwriting, and I'm not complaining because I'm really fortunate to get my stuff on stage as frequently as I do, is that you never know how many productions of your work are going to happen. And so you could have a banging year. Like I've had a really good year this year. And then next year, I've got 2 things as best I know. And so, this year I did not make enough to live off of, but I made a nice augmentation to my salary.
Right.
And then next year, I may be able to afford a few tubs of popcorn. So it's really it's feast or famine. Right. So people are like, when are you going to take that jump and just write full time? And it's like when I decide I don't need to eat.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the challenge.
Very good. Very good. So you're working on a couple of projects for next year. Do you know what your target is, where you want them performed?
It's interesting because you can write a play and then hope that you're going to get some opportunity to see it on stage. But I really try to do what I can to ensure that it's going to be on stage.
Well, at this point in your playwriting career, you know a lot of people.
I do.
And you have a successful track record. So that should put you above a lot of the other submissions that people get.
Absolutely. But, I'm surprised, not that I'm like, well, I'm calling, so of course you're going to take the call. But, there are people that I've worked with for years who, you'll write and say, hey, I've got this play I'd really like for you to read it and consider it. And they won't respond. And or it's a theater like my play I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti just had its 12th professional production. It's been done in various cities across the U.S. I don't have an agent still, so that makes it a bit difficult in terms of I'm the one that really has to go out there and do a lot of the legwork, or someone hears about the play and will ask to see the script. So there are theaters that did literally like standing room business with I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. And then would go back and say, I've got this other play called Born Fat, or I've got this other play called Raging Skillet. And they won't respond. And so, there are some that, like Theater Works, where I have a really terrific artistic home and ongoing relationship. I'd say Seven Angels Theater and Waterbury. They've done 2 of my plays, and we're in talks about doing another new play. But there's no guarantee that the theater that loves you today is going to be a theater that's going to answer your email or call next week.
Well, it's kind of like an actor. You don't know. You might have a blockbuster and a award nomination this year, but next year nothing.
Yeah, and it's and I think my life is so much easier than an actor's life. It truly is, because they have to, take themselves offline 2 months, especially if they're leaving New York, offline for 2 months. They're working and they're getting paid, but then on their off days, they're running back into New York to audition in the hopes that they're going to have something to walk into when they leave. Yeah. So there are big stretches of time where they're not working in theater, not getting to do what they love. Anytime I want, except for when I'm getting paid for my job, my day job, which is currently paying me to be here on your radio station.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I can sit and write. I can work. And I guess they can be in their apartment and act, but they really want to be on stage and getting that electricity from an audience.
Are any of the works or any of the plays that you've written likely to be adapted for TV or movies?
You know, I've been asked by a few people about I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. You know, some people are like, oh, it could be a series or what have you. Rossi's actually written her own film adaptation of Raging Skillet that is not based on my script. But to me, my love is theater. You know, I think if I were to get an agent and get some of these scripts published, then that would be a higher likelihood. I have co-written a screenplay for a movie for Varla Jean that was produced and screened at various film festivals until it disappeared into oblivion. But it's not really my thing, you know. The money would be nice, but it's a different animal.
Passion, don't necessarily follow the dollar.
Yeah, well, you know, again, if I was a playwright full time, yeah, I'd be banging on that door because that's where the money is. I mean, if you get a successful play, you know, the next play TheaterWorks is doing A Doll's House Part 2. The playwright Lucas Hanath wrote this play on a commission, which means you get some money up front, and then you get a royalty, and then it went to Broadway, and he gets a better royalty, and he had a successful run. And last year it was the most produced play in the United States, or maybe it's this year. And so, you know, he's going to be good for a while. Right. He's going to be good for a while. But, you know, for me, it's just been kind of catch as catch can, but I've been very lucky, and I like to think that I keep good relationships with the theaters.
We've only got about a minute left.
Oh, my goodness.
I did want to ask you...
Buy your tickets, buy your tickets, buy your tickets.
Buy your tickets now.
TheaterWorksHartford.org.
Do you plan on reworking some of the playlets for Christmas on the Rocks for next year? Tweaking them a little, maybe taking one or two out, adding a new one?
You know, that's Rob Ruggiero, the conceiver and director's decision. You know, I've written a bunch that have hit the cutting room floor. We're going to be reading one of them publicly for the first time here at TheaterWorks. So I'm excited about that on December 17th.
Very good. Very good. Well, Jacques, thank you very much for joining Mark and I. I really do appreciate it. Mark, it's always fun having you on as a guest host.
Patrick, it's always fun working with you. And it's great to have Jacques on. I enjoyed your work so much.
Thank you.
And I will say, Mark has raved about your work. He hasn't enjoyed it. He raves about your work.
Did you hear that, theaters?
Hey, there you go. I'll give you that extra plug at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining Mark and I on the Westfield News Radio Show live from TheaterWorks in Hartford. On the stage of Christmas on the Rocks. It has been a fantastic show, a wonderful 2 hours. I've learned so much about the theater industry, the actors, the playwrights, the directors, the artistic side of it. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you to all the folks at TheaterWorks for allowing Mark, Pete and I to come down here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I will see you on the radio in next week. My guest is Alex Dixon, general manager from MGM Springfield. Mark, you're going to have half of this tomorrow.
Well, no, on Friday we'll have the first half of this, the following Friday the second half, and on December 21st, I've got several of my theater cronies that are reporters and reviewers, and we're going to recap 2018 on stage in Connecticut and Western Mass.
Very good. Sounds riveting. That's it for us for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the radio next week.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen, but do you recall the most famous reindeer reindeer of all. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then on a foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? They heard the reindeer laughing as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You'll go down in
The Westfield News Show and Artsbeat Radio here at 89.5 FM WSKB is part of community radio at Westfield State University. Your hosts today are Patrick Berry of the Westfield News Group and Mark G. Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. Our special thanks to the folks at TheaterWorks in Hartford, Rob Ruggiero, artistic director, Freddie McInerney, Michael McKiernan, Eric Ort, and Cece Chapman. TheaterWorks is presenting Christmas on the Rocks through the end of December. For information on TheaterWorks programs, twhartford.org.
Well, here it is, my time has come. Won't be long, I'll be moving on. I can't complain, I've had my day. Now I'll be on my way. And all the good times that we've had, much more good than bad. What more can I say? My faith in better days is strong. Somewhere warm and safe to stay. Now I'll be on my way. You might think you need my love, but I can't give you enough. You deserve the warmest, purest rain. Now I'll be on my way. An inch my store. There's no need